The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm orange glow across the busy streets of the human colony on Zerath Prime, and Dr. Ethan walked carefully among the crowds, his medical bag slung over his shoulder. He was tired from a long day treating minor injuries, but something about the quiet tension in the air made him alert. Merchants called out their wares, and aliens of different shapes and sizes moved past him, their chatter filling the marketplace. Suddenly, a soft thud echoed from the corner of the street, drawing his attention. Ethan turned sharply and saw a young alien girl lying on the ground, her delicate frame trembling, her skin shimmering faintly in pale shades of blue and violet. Her long hair, almost silver in the dim light, fell across her face, and her large almond-shaped eyes were wide with fear and confusion. She tried to move but let out a small cry of pain, clutching her leg, and Ethan's heart skipped a beat. Without thinking, he rushed to her side, kneeling down gently. "Hey, are you okay?" he asked softly, his voice calm and reassuring. The girl flinched, her glowing eyes staring straight at him, and she whispered something in a language he did not understand. Ethan noticed immediately that she was badly injured, her leg bent at an awkward angle, and there were faint bruises along her arms and shoulders. The colony guards were busy with other matters and paid no attention to her, and Ethan realized that no one would help. He lifted her carefully into his arms, feeling her tiny body tense against his chest. Her skin was warm, almost radiating energy, and he felt a strange connection, as if her presence was calling to something deep inside him. He carried her to his small medical cabin tucked away in a quieter part of the colony. Once inside, he gently laid her on a soft cot, taking care not to worsen her injuries. The alien girl flinched as he examined her leg, her eyes darting nervously around the room. Ethan's mind raced as he tried to understand who she was and why she was here. Her species was unfamiliar, and he had seen many aliens in his life. But she was different, almost ethereal. He cleaned her wounds carefully, using warm water and soft cloths, and she whispered again in her melodic language, her voice trembling with fear. Ethan realized she was trying to communicate something important, and he leaned closer, listening carefully. "Let me help your leg," he said, deciding to give her a gentle massage to ease the pain. He moved slowly, pressing softly along the strained muscles, and immediately noticed her body relaxing under his touch. The alien girl closed her eyes for a moment, a soft sigh escaping her lips, and for the first time, Ethan saw relief wash over her face, but then she froze, staring at him with wide, sparkling eyes, as if something inside her recognized him. Ethan felt a shiver run down his spine, unsure if it was from her gaze or the sudden tension in the room. He continued carefully, asking, "Does this hurt?" And she shook her head slightly, her lips parting in a small, fragile smile. Minutes passed in silence, broken only by the soft whispers of the alien girl. Ethan noticed strange glowing patterns on her skin, almost like symbols or markings, and he wondered if they had a hidden meaning. Her leg was responding to the massage quickly, healing faster than he expected, and a strange warmth filled the room. Suddenly, she whispered a single word in perfect human pronunciation, "Human," and Ethan's heart skipped a beat. He looked at her, confused and curious. "Do you know me?" he asked softly, but she only shook her head, still staring at him with intense eyes. The connection between them felt deeper than chance, and Ethan sensed that this encounter was only the beginning of something extraordinary. Outside, shadows moved quietly, and Ethan's instincts told him that she was not safe. The market had grown quiet as the sun dipped further, and the air felt heavier, filled with unseen danger. Ethan realized that the alien girl was hiding from something, or someone, and that her presence here could bring trouble to the colony. Yet he could not leave her alone, not when she needed him the most. He continued to massage her leg gently, whispering calming words, and slowly her fear began to fade, replaced by trust. The room felt still, almost sacred, as the sun finally disappeared behind the horizon. Ethan knew that this was the start of an unusual journey, one filled with danger, mystery, and the possibility of friendship beyond worlds. And as he looked at the glowing eyes of the alien girl, he could not shake the feeling that their fates were now intertwined. Leaving the audience at the edge of their seats, Ethan watched the alien girl closely as she slowly relaxed on the cot, her glowing skin dimming slightly as the tension left her body. He wondered about her story and what had brought her to the colony in such a state. Her name, if she had one, was still a mystery, and every movement she made seemed careful, deliberate, as if she feared something unseen. Finally, after a long silence, the girl whispered again, her voice soft but trembling. "Lyra," she said, and Ethan's ears perked up. Her words sounded like a name, a hint of identity, and he repeated it gently. "Lyra, is that your name?" She nodded slowly, her eyes never leaving his face, and Ethan felt a strange sense of relief that at least he could call her something. Her leg was still sore, and he continued to massage it gently, noticing faint, glowing symbols appearing along her skin, almost like tattoos but moving slightly as he touched her. He realized these marks were not ordinary, and some part of him knew they were connected to her past or her powers. Lyra took a deep breath, and her small hands trembled as she tried to speak. They were chasing me," she whispered, and Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. He paused, his hands hovering above her leg, and asked carefully, "Who was chasing you?" Lyra shook her head slightly, unable to explain fully, but her eyes filled with fear and urgency. She tried again, this time more clearly. "The hunters. They want me." Ethan's heart sank, and he realized this was far bigger than he had imagined. Lyra was not just a lost alien child. She was someone important, someone being hunted for reasons he did not yet understand. He felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him, knowing that he could not let her fall into their hands as he continued massaging her leg. He felt a faint warmth spreading from his touch into her body, and the glow on her skin pulsed softly, almost like a heartbeat. It was as if she was responding not just physically but emotionally, trusting him more with every gentle movement. The air in the cabin grew heavier with tension, and Ethan realized he had to ask more, even if it frightened her. "Lyra, you are safe here for now," he said softly, "but I need to understand. What makes you so important?" Her eyes widened and she swallowed hard, then whispered a phrase in her melodic alien language. Ethan did not understand the words, but the urgency in her tone was clear. She pressed her hand lightly against his arm, as if begging him not to leave her alone, and Ethan felt a surge of determination. He decided to look closer at the glowing patterns on her skin, tracing them carefully with his fingers. The symbols shifted slightly as he touched them, forming shapes that resembled constellations he had studied. He realized these markings were not just decoration. They were a map or a key, something deeply connected to her identity and possibly her powers. Lyra's leg was healing under his touch, faster than natural, and Ethan wondered if her body itself held some kind of advanced technology or alien biology. The thought made him both amazed and cautious. If the hunters knew about this, it explained why they were so determined to capture her. Suddenly, Lyra flinched and looked toward the small window of the cabin, her pupils widening in terror. Ethan followed her gaze and noticed faint shadows moving along the street outside. "Someone is out there," she whispered urgently. "They are close." Ethan's mind raced. He had no weapons, no backup, only his quick thinking and the trust he had built with Lyra. He knew that if they were discovered, both their lives could be in danger. Ethan quickly moved her away from the window, and Lyra held onto him tightly, her small body shaking. She tried to explain more, gesturing frantically with her hands, but words failed her, and Ethan could only guess at the meaning. He realized that time was critical, and they needed a plan. The longer they stayed, the higher the risk of being found by the hunters. He gently massaged her leg one more time, feeling her relax slightly, and whispered, "We will find a way to keep you safe, I promise." Lyra's glowing eyes softened, and she nodded, her trust in him growing stronger. As they sat in silence, Ethan thought about the possibilities, about how a human and an alien child could be connected by fate. He remembered stories of humans helping other species across galaxies, but nothing had prepared him for this. The room felt charged with a strange energy, as if Lyra's presence alone was shifting the atmosphere. Her leg was improving, but the danger outside still loomed, and Ethan knew they could not stay here for long. He looked at her, determination in his eyes, and said softly, "We will leave soon, but first you need to rest and regain strength." Lyra nodded, closing her eyes for the first time fully, and Ethan watched over her, ready to protect her from the shadows that waited outside. The chapter ended with the soft glow of her skin pulsating, a quiet warning of the power she carried, and the suspense of what would happen when the hunters arrived lingered in the air. Ethan watched Lyra as she rested on the soft cot, her small body finally still after the terror of the day. Her glowing skin pulsed gently, like a heartbeat visible in the dim cabin light. He could not help but marvel at her delicate features, her wide, expressive eyes, and the faint shimmer of energy that surrounded her. There was something about her, something beyond beauty, that made him feel both protective and curious. He decided to continue helping her, massaging her leg carefully, keeping his touch gentle but steady. Lyra flinched at first, but soon her body relaxed under his hands, and he noticed her breathing becoming even and calm as he worked. Ethan felt a strange warmth spreading from her skin into his hands, a sensation that made him realize she was not just healing, she was connecting. It was as if his touch was more than physical, as if they shared a silent language of trust and care. "Your leg is strong now," Ethan said softly, trying to lighten the mood. Lyra looked at him, her eyes wide, and for a moment, a tiny smile appeared on her lips. She whispered something in her melodic alien language, and Ethan shook his head. "I don't understand you yet, but I will," he replied, his voice gentle. She tilted her head and seemed to study him, almost as if weighing whether to trust him fully. Ethan knew it would take time, but he was willing to be patient. Hours passed, and the bond between them grew stronger. Ethan asked her simple questions, showing pictures of humans and alien species, and Lyra responded with gestures, soft nods, and small words she could pronounce. Through these small interactions, he learned more about her journey. She had traveled far from a distant star system, escaping hunters who wanted her for her rare abilities. She had witnessed terrible things, and the trauma showed in her cautious movements and fearful glances. Yet despite the fear, there was a spark of courage in her eyes, and Ethan admired it deeply. He continued massaging her leg, noticing that the glowing symbols on her skin shifted and moved almost as if alive. Lyra winced slightly at one point, and Ethan paused, adjusting his touch. "It's okay. I'm here," he whispered, and she seemed to understand. Closing her eyes briefly in relief, the trust between them was growing, and Ethan felt a sense of connection he had never experienced before. It was not just about helping her physically. It was about being there when no one else could, about being the safe presence she needed. Outside, the colony had begun to quiet down, but Ethan knew the danger was still close. He peeked through the small window, careful not to show Lyra his concern. Shadows moved along the streets, and he sensed that the hunters were still searching. Relentless in their pursuit, Lyra shivered slightly, and he wrapped a blanket around her small frame, holding her gently. The warmth of the blanket and his presence seemed to comfort her, and she leaned slightly into him, a sign of trust that made his heart tighten. "Ethan," she whispered softly, using the only human word she could remember. "Friend?" He smiled gently, feeling a mixture of relief and pride. "Yes, Lyra, I am your friend," he said. She nodded, closing her eyes, and for the first time, Ethan felt that their bond was more than temporary, more than coincidence. It was a connection that could withstand the dangers outside, a bridge between human and alien, between fear and trust. As the night grew darker, Ethan shared small stories of humans, of the colony, and of the stars. Lyra listened intently, her eyes wide open at times. Blinking slowly as if absorbing every word, she even reached out, placing a small hand over his arm in a gesture of thanks, and Ethan felt a surge of emotion. He realized that she was teaching him as much as he was teaching her. Her resilience, her quiet bravery, and her willingness to trust a stranger reminded him of the best parts of humanity. Suddenly, Lyra stirred, her glowing eyes opening wide, and she whispered urgently, "They close." Ethan froze, his heart pounding, and he glanced toward the window again, noticing distant shadows moving faster than before. It was clear that the hunters were relentless, and there was no time to waste. He gently helped Lyra sit up, continuing to massage her leg to keep her strong. Her small body leaned into his support, and Ethan felt the depth of responsibility heavier than ever. He knew that their bond would be tested soon, that trust alone would not be enough to keep her safe. Minutes later, Lyra surprised him by softly speaking a human word he did not expect. "Go." She wanted him to lead, to plan, to protect her, and Ethan nodded silently. Understanding the gravity of the situation, he realized that their connection was not just emotional, it was practical, a survival bond forged in trust and care. He would have to use every skill he had to keep her alive, but the bond they had built gave him hope. No matter the danger, he would not let her down, and she would not face the hunters alone. The night deepened, and the cabin was quiet except for the soft hum of Lyra's glowing body. Ethan sat beside her, keeping his hands on her leg, feeling the warmth and energy flowing between them. The bond was undeniable, and for the first time, He understood that friendship and trust could cross species, galaxies, and fear itself. Outside danger waited, but inside, a new alliance had formed, strong, unbreakable, and ready to face whatever came next. The soft glow of Lyra's skin illuminated the small cabin as Ethan helped her rise. Her leg was stronger now, but still tender, and he knew they needed to move before the hunters found them. Outside, the colony streets were quiet, but Ethan could sense the tension in the air, a heavy warning that danger was near. He lifted Lyra carefully, cradling her in his arms, and they slipped out the back door. The narrow alleyways of the colony offered some cover, but Ethan knew it was only temporary. Shadows moved at the edges of his vision, and he realized that the hunters were already searching. Relentless and precise, every step they took echoed through the empty streets, and Ethan's heart pounded with fear and determination. Lyra held onto him tightly, her glowing eyes scanning the darkness. She whispered softly, "Fast," and Ethan nodded, tightening his grip. Her small body was light, but he could feel her tension, the way she braced herself for each footstep. It was clear she had been running from these hunters for a long time, and Ethan understood for the first time the weight of her journey. As they turned a corner, a loud crash sounded behind them. Ethan's pulse quickened, and he realized the hunters had spotted them. He ducked into a shadowed doorway, pressing Lyra close to his chest. Her small hands rested on his arms, trembling slightly, and he whispered, "Stay calm. We will find a way." Lyra's glowing skin dimmed slightly, as if responding to his words, giving him hope that she trusted him completely. They moved quickly through the alleys, using shortcuts and hidden passages only a human who had lived on Zerath Prime could know. Ethan glanced at Lyra, noticing how alert she was, her eyes following every movement and every sound. Despite the fear, there was a spark of courage in her expression, a determination that matched his own. He realized that she was not just a child in need of protection. She was a partner in survival. Small but fierce. Suddenly they reached a wide-open plaza, and Ethan froze, realizing they were exposed. The hunters would have a clear line of sight if they ran across, and Ethan knew he had to think fast. He spotted an abandoned transport shuttle at the edge of the plaza, its doors slightly open. "It's our chance," he whispered to Lyra, and she nodded, understanding immediately. He set her down gently and supported her as they ran, her small legs moving quickly. Fueled by adrenaline as they reached the shuttle, Ethan heard the hunters' voices, cold and commanding, echoing through the streets. Lyra's breathing was rapid, and he could feel her heart racing against his chest. He helped her inside the shuttle, checking quickly to make sure it was safe. The interior was dark, dusty, but it offered them shelter. At least for the moment, Lyra collapsed onto a seat, her glowing skin dimming as she rested, and Ethan felt a surge of relief, but he knew it would not last. And the hunters were still searching, relentless in their pursuit. Ethan glanced at her leg, still tender, and decided to give her a quick massage to ease the pain. Lyra closed her eyes, letting him work, and for a moment, the world outside seemed to fade. Her body responded quickly, the glow returning slightly, and Ethan realized that these quiet moments of care were as important as hiding or running. It was not just her strength that mattered, it was the trust and bond they had built, and it gave them both hope. Minutes passed in tense silence, broken only by distant footsteps and the soft hum of the shuttle's systems. Ethan whispered softly, "We have to keep moving." "But you are stronger now and we can do this," Lyra nodded, her small hand reaching for his, gripping tightly as if to anchor herself to him. He realized that no matter how fast they ran or how clever they were, the hunters were formidable, but he also knew that together, their bond, their courage, and their trust in each other could make them unstoppable. The shuttle door creaked slightly, and Ethan's heart skipped a beat. He held Lyra close, listening carefully for any sound that might betray their location. The shadows outside moved again, closer, more deliberate, and he knew the hunters were searching every corner. He whispered to Lyra, "Ready yourself. We may need to run again soon." Her glowing eyes met his, filled with determination and trust, and Ethan felt a surge of courage. He knew that the chase was only beginning, but together they could face whatever came next. The night deepened, and the city lights cast long shadows over the empty streets. Ethan and Lyra moved quietly, using every skill and instinct to stay ahead of the hunters. The suspense was heavy, the danger real, and yet the bond they shared grew stronger with each step. In that moment, Ethan understood that survival was not just about speed or skill, It was about trust, courage, and the unbreakable connection between human and alien. Ethan and Lyra crouched inside the abandoned shuttle, their breaths shallow as the shadows of the hunters moved through the plaza outside. Ethan's mind raced, trying to find a safe way out. He knew they could not stay hidden for long, and the hunters would soon find another route to reach them. Lyra's small hands rested lightly on his arm, her glowing skin pulsing softly. Her eyes were wide with fear but also determination, and Ethan realized she trusted him completely. He whispered softly, "We need help, Lyra. Someone who can guide us and protect you." She nodded slightly, understanding, and pointed to a small communication panel in the corner of the shuttle. Ethan quickly activated it, scanning for signals, and found a faint connection to a group of human and alien allies he knew could be trusted. He sent a quick encrypted message explaining their situation, careful not to reveal their location to the hunters. Within minutes, a response came and a plan began to form. The allies would meet them at a hidden dock on the edge of the city, where transport ships could whisk them away to safety. Ethan felt a surge of relief. Knowing they had a chance, he looked at Lyra, her small body tense but ready, and whispered, "We have friends coming. We are not alone anymore." Lyra's glowing eyes brightened slightly, and she whispered a soft word almost like a thank you. Ethan smiled, feeling the bond between them grow even stronger. He checked her leg carefully, massaging it lightly to keep her strong for the journey ahead. The glowing symbols shifted gently as he touched them, and Ethan realized that Lyra's powers were connected not just to her body, but to her emotions and trust. Minutes later, they left the shuttle quietly, moving through the alleyways with careful precision. The night was dark, but Ethan's knowledge of the city gave them an advantage. Every corner held the potential for discovery, and every shadow seemed alive with danger. Lyra held onto his arm, her small hands gripping tightly, and Ethan felt a renewed determination. As they moved, Ethan asked quietly, "Lyra, can you tell me more about these hunters?" She hesitated, then whispered, "They want my power to control the stars." Ethan's eyes widened, realizing the stakes were higher than he had imagined. These hunters were not ordinary criminals. They were part of a dangerous faction, seeking to harness alien abilities for their own gain. He felt a chill run through him, but he did not falter, knowing that protecting Lyra was now a mission he could not abandon. They reached the hidden dock just as the first allies arrived. A mix of humans and friendly aliens, Ethan introduced Lyra quickly, explaining the urgency. The allies nodded, understanding the danger and forming a quick strategy. One of them, a tall alien named Kara, offered her hand to Lyra, who hesitated but then accepted. It was a small gesture, but it symbolized trust and alliance, and Ethan felt hope rising within him as they prepared to move. A faint sound caught Ethan's attention. The hunters were close, their footsteps echoing across the water docks. He glanced at Lyra, who nodded, her small form glowing softly, ready to follow him wherever he led. The allies formed a protective circle around them, moving quietly toward the waiting transport ships. Every step was tense, every shadow a potential threat. The night seemed endless, filled with the constant threat of discovery. Ethan whispered to Lyra, "Stay close, trust our friends, and we will get you to safety." She nodded, her eyes meeting his briefly, and he felt a deep sense of connection. The hunters' voices grew louder, and Ethan realized that the final test of trust and courage was upon them. He tightened his grip on Lyra's hand, leading her forward. The bond between human and alien, between protector and protected, would guide them through this dangerous night. As they boarded the transport ship, Ethan gave Lyra's leg one final gentle massage. She smiled faintly, her glowing skin pulsing with renewed strength. He realized that every moment of care, every gesture of trust had prepared them for this moment. The ship lifted off quietly, moving away from the docks and the hunters. Ethan looked down at the city, knowing the danger was not over, but for the first time, he felt that they had a chance. Lyra leaned against him, her small form warm and trusting, and Ethan knew that their alliance was stronger than any threat. The ship moved into the night sky, carrying them toward safety, but also toward a new chapter filled with uncertainty, adventure, and the unbreakable bond they had formed. Ethan held on to Lyra, knowing that together, they could face anything the universe threw at them. The transport ship hummed quietly as it moved through the dark skies above the colony. Ethan kept a watchful eye on Lyra, who sat beside him, her small hands clutching the edge of the seat. Her leg had healed enough to walk, but he knew the real test was still ahead. The hunters would not give up, and the final confrontation was inevitable. Suddenly, the ship's alarm blared softly, signaling an incoming threat. Ethan's heart raced, and he glanced at Lyra, whose glowing eyes widened in fear and determination. "They found us," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of the ship. Ethan nodded, feeling the surge of adrenaline. "We will face them together," he said, his voice firm and steady. The ship shook as a fleet of enemy crafts emerged from the shadows. Surrounding them, Ethan's mind raced, calculating their odds and the best way to protect Lyra. He moved to the ship's controls, trying to maneuver through the enemy fleet. Lyra leaned close, whispering guidance in her alien language, and Ethan realized her intuition was extraordinary. She could sense their movements, predicting danger before it came, and it gave him a small edge. As the enemy crafts closed in, Ethan knew they could not outrun them for long. He glanced at Lyra, who nodded, understanding that they would have to fight. The hunters boarded the ship through advanced teleportation devices. Appearing suddenly in the corridors, Ethan grabbed a small energy weapon from the ship's storage. Ready to defend, Lyra followed him, her glowing hands pulsing with energy, and Ethan realized that her powers were stronger than he had imagined. The hunters attacked, their weapons blazing, but Ethan and Lyra moved quickly. Using strategy and trust to evade the strikes, Ethan guided Lyra, helping her avoid the blasts while she unleashed small energy pulses that stunned their enemies. Her glowing skin intensified, casting light through the dark corridors, and Ethan felt a sense of awe and fear at the power she wielded. Every step was tense, every movement critical, and the bond they had built was the key to their survival. At one point, a hunter grabbed Lyra, and Ethan did not hesitate. He lunged forward, striking the attacker with precise force. Freeing her immediately, Lyra stumbled slightly, and Ethan quickly massaged her leg, helping her regain balance and strength. The hunters paused, surprised by the speed and coordination between the human and the alien girl. It was clear that their bond and trust gave them an advantage beyond ordinary skill. Lyra's energy pulsed brighter, and she unleashed a wave of light that knocked several hunters back. Ethan realized that her powers could be controlled and amplified through calm and trust. He spoke to her softly, guiding her focus, and she responded, moving with precision and grace. Together they fought, dodging attacks, countering with skill, and pushing the hunters toward retreat. The small cabin they had defended became a battleground, but Ethan and Lyra's connection was unbreakable. Finally, only the leader of the hunters remained, a tall, menacing figure with glowing red eyes. He charged at them with speed and force, and Ethan knew this was the decisive moment. Lyra stepped forward, her hands glowing fiercely, ready to strike. Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder, whispering, "Focus, trust yourself." "And trust me," she nodded, and in a brilliant surge of light, she unleashed her full power, creating a protective barrier around them. The leader screamed in frustration, his attacks failing against the glowing shield. Ethan guided Lyra carefully, helping her direct the energy precisely. With one final push, Lyra's power overwhelmed the hunter, sending him tumbling backward and finally neutralized. The remaining enemy forces retreated, leaving Ethan and Lyra victorious. The silence that followed was almost surreal, broken only by their heavy breathing and the soft hum of the transport ship. Ethan looked at Lyra, her glowing eyes softening, her small form trembling slightly with exhaustion. He gently massaged her leg, helping her regain her strength after the intense confrontation. Lyra looked up at him, a small smile forming, and whispered softly, "Thank you, human." Ethan nodded, feeling a deep sense of pride and relief. Knowing they had survived together, their bond had been tested in the fiercest battle, and it had held strong, unbroken, and powerful. As the ship moved away from the colony and the hunters' territory, Ethan realized the significance of their victory. They had not only survived, but they had proven that trust, courage, and connection could overcome overwhelming danger. Lyra's leg was fully healed, her powers controlled, and their bond stronger than ever. The final confrontation had ended, but it had forged a new beginning, a story of courage, trust, and the extraordinary friendship between human and alien. Ethan held her hand, looking out into the stars, knowing that together they could face whatever challenges awaited in the universe. The transport ship glided silently through the stars, carrying Ethan and Lyra away from the danger that had haunted them. The dim cabin lights cast a warm glow on Lyra's small form. Her glowing skin soft and steady now, free from fear for the first time in days. Ethan watched her carefully, still alert, knowing that their journey was far from over. But grateful for this quiet moment, Lyra leaned against him, her small hands resting gently on his arm. She whispered softly, "Safe." And Ethan smiled, feeling the weight of responsibility lift slightly. He continued to massage her leg gently, making sure she was fully comfortable. Her leg was completely healed, and the glow from her markings had faded to a calm shimmer, signaling recovery and peace. As the stars streaked past the viewport, Ethan asked gently, "Lyra, what will you do now?" She tilted her head, her eyes reflecting curiosity and thought. "I must return home," she whispered, "to my people. To my planet." Ethan nodded slowly, understanding that her journey was not yet over. He felt a pang of sadness knowing he would miss her presence. But he also knew that her homecoming was important, and he had played a part in keeping her safe. The allies they had met earlier communicated with the ship, giving directions to a hidden star portal that would take them closer to Lyra's home system. Ethan checked the navigation systems, adjusting their course carefully. He looked at Lyra, whose small fingers traced patterns on the console. She was already familiar with star charts and navigation, and Ethan marveled at her intelligence, realizing how remarkable she truly was. As the hours passed, Ethan and Lyra shared stories of their lives, exchanging words, gestures, and laughter. Lyra learned about human culture, music, and simple joys. Ethan learned about alien history, the vastness of the stars, and the resilience of her people. Through these quiet conversations, their bond deepened. It was no longer just about survival or trust. It had become a friendship forged in the harshest trials, unbreakable and enduring. Finally, the portal appeared on the ship's sensors, a shimmering gateway of light suspended between stars. Lyra's glowing eyes brightened, a mixture of excitement and anticipation filling her expression. "This is home," she whispered, almost in awe, and Ethan felt pride and satisfaction at having guided her this far. He reached out and held her small hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. "We made it," he said softly, and she nodded, a smile forming that lit up her entire face. As they passed through the portal, the ship emerged near Lyra's home planet, a world of soft green landscapes, glittering lakes, and towering crystal structures. The air around them shimmered with alien energy, and Ethan realized the beauty and mystery of her world. Lyra's people approached, cautious at first, but recognition and relief spread across their faces as they saw her safe and uninjured. Ethan stepped back, giving her space. Knowing this reunion was hers alone, Lyra ran toward her people, her small form glowing brightly with joy and energy. Her parents or guardians embraced her, tears glistening in their eyes, and Ethan felt a sense of fulfillment unlike anything he had known. One of Lyra's leaders approached Ethan cautiously. Studying him carefully, he nodded respectfully, acknowledging Ethan's courage and dedication. "You have protected her when no one else could," the leader said in a melodic voice. "And for that our people are grateful." Ethan bowed slightly. Feeling honored and humbled, he realized that this adventure had changed him as much as it had changed Lyra. He had seen the courage of an alien child, the power of trust, and the potential for friendship across species and stars. Lyra ran back to him briefly, her small hands gripping his arm. "Human friend," she whispered, her eyes shining. Ethan smiled. "Yes, Lyra, always your friend," he said. They shared a quiet moment, a bond sealed not just by survival but by courage, trust, and hope. As Ethan prepared to return to his ship, Lyra's people offered him a gift, a small crystal pendant glowing softly. "It is a token of our gratitude and friendship," one of the leaders said, "to remind you that you will always have a place here." Ethan accepted it humbly, tucking it safely into his pocket. He waved goodbye as Lyra ran toward her people, her laughter echoing across the crystalline landscape. The stars sparkled above, and Ethan felt a sense of peace, knowing he had made a difference in the life of someone extraordinary. As his ship lifted off, Ethan looked back at the planet shrinking below. He reflected on the journey, on the danger, the trust, the bond with Lyra, and the victories they had achieved together. He realized that the universe was vast, full of challenges, mysteries, and friendships waiting to be discovered. Lyra had taught him the power of courage, the importance of trust, and the beauty of forming connections across worlds. And as the ship disappeared into the stars, Ethan knew that this was only the beginning of countless adventures to come. The night sky stretched endlessly before him, filled with possibilities. Lyra's light, her courage, and their shared story would remain with him forever, and somewhere across the galaxies, a young alien girl would remember the human who gave her strength, trust, and friendship. Together they had faced danger, overcome fear, and created a bond that would endure across time and space. And that was the true beginning. A new chapter of hope, courage, and interstellar friendship.